When I played um, Last of Us Part 2, it felt like a really good game, even a great game. But to use a term that people use nowadays, it kind of felt like old hat without any kind of evolution of the Last of Us formula. It felt like I was playing Part 1 with better graphics. And with like you play as Abby and she has a couple new moves, and except for the story elements when Ellie was falling for the lesbian girl got pregnant. Except for the story beats, the gameplay itself, the reason why you play games, it felt more or less the same. I mean, like you're still using mines to trap the creepers, still the headshots and everything like that. It felt the same. A lot of it felt the same without any kind of true evolution of the series. Converse with playing Yakuza. I've been playing Yakuza games since the PS2 games. Yakuza, like Yakuza 2, 3, 4, 5, yada, yada, yada. So every Yakuza game is the same formula per se, you against bad guys in a third person setting. However, they change the combat into being more smoother, easier to control. You can look at enemies a little bit easier. Sometimes you'll get like a back attack or whatever, an evolution of a back attack. Sometimes you can you'll get a move like in this particular game, you'll get a move when you can like hold the button down and do more damage to someone, which wasn't in the other games. You could swing people around in a circle, which you couldn't do in another game. You can like sometimes you could jump off walls, and which you couldn't do in other games, and then like et cetera, et cetera. There are certain moves you can do in certain games that wasn't the other ones to make the combat more fun. And then you have new areas to explore to use it against new people. So like every game in Yakuza felt like more cool things to an evolution of the particular combat flow. But in Last of Us Part 2, I honestly didn't feel that through the entire journey. I felt like I was playing Part 1 just with better graphics. And then also the reason why Last of Us Part 2 should not have won Game of the Year, I mean like at all, is because after you beat the game, unlike Part 1, there's nothing to do. You can play at a harder difficulty level, but every game has that. But it conversely, if you look at a much better Game of the Year choice, Ghost of Tsushima, after you beat the game, not only do you get like a new game plus, which is standard stuff, but there's a lot of side missions that you likely didn't accomplish in your first playthrough because you didn't find them all, they were too difficult to get to, that kind of stuff. And there's story elements with those particular side quests as well. In addition, that you can play now on a harder difficulty level, in which like you can die with one hit, and they would die with one hit per se, like it's like an all or nothing kind of thing. It's like a real samurai kind of stuff. And in addition to, you can play in Kurosawa mode, which changes the visual look and also gives you a different sound feeling to the old school movies. In addition to the online mode as well, you can play co-op against with other people against the AI in Ghost of Tsushima. So you have a lot of choices after you beat the game. In Last of Us Part 2, you get none of that. No side missions, unless you want to do the collectible thing, which you can do in Last of Us Part 1, unless you want to read more with the collectibles instead of experiencing the story like Ghost of Tsushima, sure, Game of the Year. So, in Persona 5, in Persona 4, in Persona 3, after you beat the game, there's more content. So there's usually like a secret boss you can get to after you beat the game to test your abilities like no other. In Last of Us Part 2, none of that. I don't know if Tsushima has that, but a lot of games give you something cool to do after you beat the game. There's such a lack of content in Last of Us Part 2, I couldn't believe it won Game of the Year. It's a good looking game with a great story as well, but for your dollar, absolutely not. Clack off.